So do you, when you feel done my cowboy hat too?
I look like Pharrell.
Carl! Carl! This was your idea. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here with you for a book review of Stephen King's The Gunslinger.
The Gunslinger. Apparently this is a really popular. Really popular. So I hope we anger everyone with this one.
Yeah, that's going to happen. So to start things off, did you pick a favorite quote from the book?
I did, actually. Would you like to start yours first?
Sure.
I see mine actually has a stripped cover. Isn't that special?
No one got paid for that. Stephen King. In the morning, she cooked him grits, which he ate without comment. He shoveled them in without thinking about her, hardly seeing her. He knew he should go. Every minute he sat there, the man in black was further away, probably out of the hard pan and arroyos into the desert by now. His path had been undeviatingly southeast, and the gunslinger knew why. Now, I think the reason I picked that quote is because it basically encapsulates everything that this novel has going for it.
And I think that's evident of any good quote it's a summation of the novel.
Right,
it lets you know everything. Or it's just so wonderful that it's beautiful. It sits with you.
Right. This does
which
not gleam
this doesn't have.
in quite that way. But I think that it picks up on a little bit of mystery. It's got a little bit of setting, and it's got a little bit of the character of Roland in there, with him knowing he should go. He doesn't want to spend time with her, barely even saw her. He's all about business, and cooked him grits. Yeah. I like cooked him grits. I don't know why.
Have you ever had grits?
I have.
They're disappointing, to say the least.
Well,
It's water and cornmeal. I think it's a lie. I think I did a similar quote along the lines with yours. It's just something that I felt really captured the way I felt the entire novel read. He walked past the shuttered, waiting buildings, feeling the eyes that peered through the cracks and chinks. The man in black had played God in toll. He had spoken of a king's child, a red prince. Was it only a sense of the cosmic, or a matter of desperation? It was a question of some importance. Basically, King here is trying to say, nothing's happening, man in black.
Nothing's happening, nothing happened. Nothing's about to happen.
Man in black. If this novel it's the chase. This is the chase. There is no lead up to anything. There's no crescendo midway. This is the chase.
There's no payoff.
There's no payoff. It's a prologue.
Well, it's a pilot episode.
Okay.
Which is fine if you're planning on investing in the entire series. I don't feel like this would have sold me.
No.
I feel like this is bigger because it has Stephen King on the front than it would have been had it not. I've picked up a lot of small novels from Walmart, the cheap ones that, up and coming writer, this sort of thing. This reads just like those.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think there are some good Stephen King elements in here. And that's the weird thing about this is it's not bad writing.
No. Hey, Stephen King could sneeze while passing gas and it would be well narrated. I mean, that's not the question.
I think there's some of his later novels, the ones that are just now starting to come out, that might be the case.
Well, he says he doesn't remember writing Cujo.
Which is impressive if you cannot remember writing a novel.
Right. That was a Bender problem. Which, let's be honest, 300 pages even, with some illustrations in there. I'm guessing this is a 76,000-ish word novel. Stephen King probably wrote this on a 3-day bender. Yeah. He might have just woken up and had a complete novel.
And see, that's the thing. I imagine he woke up and he sat down to eat grits, and he's like, grits?
You know what this reminds me of?
I'm just going to go finish this novel today. Anyway, one of the things I really think is important about this is the genre of the novel, because this isn't the typical King that we're very used to. It's not the horror novel. it's a weird blend between a Western, a sci-fi, a fantasy, and a little bit of horror in as well. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I think that is actually the strongest selling point of the novel, is that it is not able to be nailed down to any one thing. And I think it's a large part of the appeal of the novel, and why it's grown such a following, is because you were able to use any of those bastard elements from any of the genres that you have previously worked in and just sprinkle them in. And if that happens to be, say the chase is someone's favorite technique from, for example, sci-fi. A lot of sci-fi has to do with the chase.
Yeah.
If that's your favorite thing from sci-fi, well, you'll like this.
Yeah.
If the nameless other is your favorite thing from horror, you'll like this. So I think that that's one of the most impressive things of the novel, is he takes very distinguishable things from different genres and just says, yeah, throw it in.
If poorly executed linguistics is your thing, then please see the writer's review about this, because that is going to be my entire rant.
Right.
High speech is ridiculous, but we'll get there.
Right.
We'll get there. That's the thing with the genre, though, and I think it could bleed over into another point that I'd like to make, is how do we define the setting? Because when I read this novel, I get a very spaghetti western sense, almost Clint Eastwood riding into town, the dust is blowing over. It's a western for me in that sense. But when you read it, you saw completely different.
I couldn't help but, like John Gardner says in The Art of Fiction, fiction is a vivid and continuous dream. And for me, this vivid and continuous dream never really took place on an earthly plane. I couldn't help but seeing, the cheesy 80s sci-fi black and green grid, every once in a while just pop up. And I don't know why. That's not fair to the novel. It's not fair to the writing. It's not fair to the execution of the thing. But for whatever reason, I never saw this as planted.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing, I think, especially when they roll through Toll, that just felt like the Western town, the quintessential Western town. And that's maybe where I got stuck with this. I feel I want Roland to be John Wayne. And that's about what I've got from this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think that King necessarily does anything to tear you away from that.
No. And that is interesting, again, to the genre. It could be that maybe John Wayne is an accurate character type for Roland.
Yeah.
Then it could be a fantasy. It could be Lord of the Rings style. Gandalf could be Roland.
Yeah, I don't know that this ever really gets away. Like I said, it takes popular things from different genres and sprinkles them in, but outside of that, we never really get to anything that is not cliche in genres, right? We just get cliches from different genres all thrown into the same pot, which is interesting. And it is really interesting that this series has garnered such a following.
Yes.
From that.
And I'm more than happy to admit this is the first and only novel of this series that I personally read. I believe that's the same for you as well. Right. So maybe this is just kind of a weird prologue setup, and it could be a beautiful, well-done series. But it doesn't make me want to read the rest.
Yeah, I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to get there because of this. But and here's the thing is, I always, one thing that this novel made me realize is that I read at least one Stephen King a year. Not because I'm a Stephen King fan, I'm not really. But I think it's good practice because the guy sold more books than God. Do you realize that reading one Stephen King book a year, you're falling behind?
That's insane.
Yeah, listen to this. 1974, Carrie was published. In the 41 years since, he has 76 complete works, including 55 novels, 11 collections, 5 nonfictions, and 5 ebooks, which means Stephen King is good for 1.85 publications a year.
That's absolutely incredible.
It's insane.
It's insane. It is.
Also, at that pace, a gunslinger's got to happen every once in a while.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, it's got to. You're going to pop out a gunslinger if you're writing thousands of pages a year.
But I think what's very disappointing about that is King says this is his magnum opus. This is his swan song. This is the one that defines me as an author, and this will be the one that's remembered.
Right. And I wrote a piece in grad school that I was not particularly happy with. Everyone in the class liked it.
Okay.
I polished it up a little bit. It still wasn't the most Adrian piece that I had written. I submitted it. It ended up being a pushcart nominee. So I think that a lot of times when you are the author or the artist that produces a piece, you have no idea what your best is, what your most marketable is, what your favorite is does not matter.
I think an interesting perspective is to look at this entire piece from the character Jake, who makes absolutely no sense to me. And I think you told me that later in the novel that people from different eras of time just start getting sprinkled throughout.
This is my understanding.
That's your understanding. We could be way off with that.
Right.
But that's the thing. I'm Western. I'm John Wayne walking into the saloon. And then all of a sudden there's a kid from New York just hanging out, basically.
Right.
Are we in an afterlife sort of thing? Is this like a form of hell that King has created? It was a personal hell reading it, so I don't know if it's moving forward with that.
That's not fair. It wasn't a hell. It's not exciting.
It isn't.
It's not impressive. But there was never a point reading this novel that I was like, oh, I'm not reading the rest of this, right? Did you ever get to that point?
I do that every time I finish my daily reading for anything, so
Okay.
that's normal for me.
You were a curmudgeon.
Unless it is The Dogs of Babel by Carolyn Parkhurst. Please see link above. Then I throw it to the side after every reading.
What a worthless person you are.
I try. Thank you. You're very welcome for that.
Person.
The best part is I do the editing, so that link, which is scrolling again, will be there for everyone to click. Isn't that wonderful?
Well, and I'm going to flatten your tires.
I understand.
I think Jake is interesting in this piece from a critical standpoint as well.
Okay.
I think that if you were to break this novel down, if you were to write a paper on this novel, what would it be?
I don't even know where I would begin.
The genre stuff would be an easy place to start.
It would.
I also think that a psychoanalysis of this would be interesting.
Yeah.
What if you cast Roland as the ego, Jake as the id, and the man in black as the superego? Especially when we also get a pervasive fear of the other, which becomes nearly everyone else in the novel.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that from a critical standpoint, that is the route that I would take to write about, but I could also see the genres.
Okay. And that is a very interesting point, that everybody is out to get Roland. It seems almost cheesy at one point. When he's in the city of Tull, there's just a huge scene right before he starts lighting everyone up, which at that point was the most exciting part for me. The interloper scene, as I'm going to have to call it from now. And I understand it's a trap set by the man in black. This was a setup, and it just feels like everyone's out to get this man. He's not an outlaw. He's not I don't know if it's believable to me.
Well, it reminds me of that of Anchorman.
Okay.
You know, well that escalated quickly.
It did.
Right?
It did.
That is the quintessential literature scene for the "that escalated quickly" quote.
Yes.
Just all of a sudden,
Where he's eating grits one minute and killing everyone in the town the next.
pop. Which, if that's the novel you want to write, hey, I'm all for it. But
Yeah.
but wow, you kind of sprinkled it in there with a man versus self novel here, right?
And we could say man versus self, because the man in black is never really established as a character.
Right.
There is and that's at the very end. He just wakes up next to a skeleton. The man in black is dead, but I've got more to do. And then we just continue. There's nothing. There's no relief towards the end that's saying this is over.
Well, there's no conclusion. There's no resolution.
Because this is a prologue.
Yeah. And we don't have to have, as readers, a huge conclusion, a huge resolution. But some resolution is necessary on a novel per novel basis, whether you're writing a series or not. Right? So what would your score for this novel be if you were to score it out of 100, say?
If I had to give it a score from 1 to 100, 100 being Hemingway's greatest, 1 being what I wrote yesterday, I'm going to go 75. Because it's not bad writing. I can see the appeal in some aspects, but it just didn't do it for me.
Okay, I'd go 70.
70?
70 flat. I think that it's a C, right? I think that if there were 1 or 2 less compelling scenes in this, it would leave you feeling completely empty as a novel. On the same sense, if there was anything non-cliche in this novel, I think that it would progress into original territory, which would be worthy, like a B, right?
Yeah. That's the thing I could say C. It was an average read. That makes sense to me.
But for me, the 70 flat is necessary because 1 or 2 things go wrong in this, and it's just not a serviceable novel. Definitely worth reading. I'm not going to say it wasn't.
Well, there's nothing that shouldn't be said, or there's nothing that we could say shouldn't be worth reading.
Right. I mean, Dogs of Babel. But when you get past the fact that, you know what, I grew from Dogs of Babel. There were interesting things in Dogs of Babel.
So you're saying it was worth reading?
No.
Okay.
But you should read it.
Yes.
There's a difference there.
Because it's wonderful. Anyway, Stephen King.
But yeah, it's a quick read. So it's definitely worth the investment.
And maybe there's something we're missing because we haven't gone further into the series yet.
I'm positive there is.
There has to be something because there is such mass appeal for this.
People love it.
Yes.
People love it. I mean, it's like any other cult following. What's the Doctor Who? Doctor Who.
You don't know what Doctor Who is?
I know, not really.
You monster.
I know roughly what Doctor Who is, but there's a massive following there, and it's just not appealing.
And, coming from a very sci-fi fantasy nerd, I love that. I've got shelves and shelves of mass-market paperback sci-fi novels that I am ashamed that I read. It didn't do it for me.
Really?
And I'm very disappointed with that because there is such a buildup in that community that this is the one.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the new Dune.
One thing that I wonder about is it seems like everyone I talk to that loves this series has someone that got them into it.
Yeah.
Right? And I never had those conversations before I picked up the Gunslinger. So I wonder if just that little amount of background noise from someone else plays that big a deal in people's readerhood.
And it could.
Right? Have you noticed that?
And that's the buildup with anything. If someone says, "Oh, this is a great novel," you're going to go in with the expectations that this is a great novel.
Right.
But if I go to the store and pull this off the shelf like I did and read it, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just not there for me.
This as a novel does not work. I am sure that as a part of a larger collective, this is what was necessary.
So, tell us what you think about Stephen King's The Gunslinger.
How wrong were we? How great is the rest of the series? If you do like the rest of the series, try to remember back to when you first started this book. Did you like it as much?
Please try to sell me on the rest of the series so I can salvage something from this.
Right. If nothing else, hit the subscribe button.
Give us a like on Twitter @StripCover.
Facebook @StripCoverLit.
And we'll see you next time.